So continuing with our example, just to remind you that I have C, I have IP, I have G, and over here I also have taxes and transfers. And I'm trying to figure out the impact of any changes on my budget on my equilibrium level of income. I looked at the government expenditure multiplier. What if, because no government ever won election by promising to spend more money, but lots of governments win election by promising to cut your taxes, sometimes by increasing transfers? What if instead of spending G, the government cut T, reduced net taxes? The impact of that is going to come indirectly by a C. So in my previous example, my change in G was of 600. Let's say that I start with equivalent, exactly same amount of change in taxes, and that's going to be minus 600. Because in this case, remember, the government is reducing my taxes, not increasing them, right? So what is the impact of a tax reduction? And the answer is I can take a look at that impact in exactly the same way I did, except just a reminder, we're using MPC equal to 0.7. The first impact is not going to be 600. Because what happened when the government took 600 and went out and bought equipment, the first impact was it entered the expenditure stream and somebody got income of 600. In this case, what happens is when the government ends up giving a tax cut of 600, the first impact is that somebody's disposable income went up by 600. Some of it went into savings, some of it went into consumption. The first impact is on consumption, and it's going to be 0.7 of that 600, all right? And that 6 sevens are 420. So the first impact is actually 420 plus 0.7 of that 420 plus and so on. So you can see that the net effect of a tax cut is going to be in sum less than the net effect of an increase in expenditure. Dollar for dollar, $600 increase in expenditure gave me a higher amount of bang for the buck in terms of expansion of income compared to $600 of tax cut. And if I continue this chain, what you're going to find is that the tax multiplier, because that first term is missing, is one term less than the government expenditure multiplier. So the total change in income is going to be, if I sum all this together, my government expenditure multiplier less 1 times change in taxes, if it is, but you got to flip the sign, because a change in net taxes, which is negative, is actually an increase in income, because a cut in your taxes increases your disposable income, right? So 600 is going to end up creating, instead of 2,000, which was the change in income from G, it's going to create 600 less than that. It's actually going to create 1,400 total increase in your income. So what you're beginning to see is that dollar for dollar, in terms of overall budget policy, people might have different reasons to prefer taxes versus transfers versus government expenditure and so on. But from a macro perspective, dollar for dollar, government expenditures give you a much sharper increase in your income if that's what you're looking for. Taxes will also give you an increase in income if you've got a tax cut. Or transfers will also give you an increase in income if you increase transfers, but it's not going to give you quite as high an expansion, and the tax multiplier is always one less than the government expenditure multiplier. So in this case, take a look. If I increase my government expenditure by 600, that would create a deficit of 600, more than I had before. And it would increase my output by 2,000. If I decreased my taxes by 600, it would also create a deficit of 600, because either case, either I'm spending more or I'm getting less revenue. It would also create a deficit of 600, and it would only increase my income by 1,400. So that difference or asymmetry in the effect of expenditures and the effect of taxes is a very crucial element of budget policy. It goes counterintuitive to a lot of people's preferences or ideologies, which is fine. People have lots of reasons to vote or think about budget policies that exceed economics. But in terms of macroeconomic policy, one of the things we are going to be concerned with is that if you do find yourself needing to intervene in a way where you want to expand income, so for example, you want to try and expand production, and you're going to have to run a deficit to do it, then which makes more sense? And a lot's going to depend on overall budget policy, but this is one of the factors we keep in mind. Let's see what can happen if we don't like deficits and we'd like to figure out a way to intervene in the economy without at least increasing our deficit. So that's going to be the next video.